on up.
We'll
Yeah,
welcome the scenery.
yeah, for sure, right? Okay, so today is session five, and we're going to be doing a couple of things. The activity that we do every time we meet is going to happen earlier this morning, so be ready for that. It's going to probably happen in the first 10 minutes of this session today, and it's going to be a little bit of you exploring and reporting back to the group on what you found. And
Yeah.
we're going to do a little bit more work with purpose-driven reading, but this time it's going to be on the teacher end.
Now, get this password because it'll change your life. It's awesome.
So instead of us giving purpose to our students, we want to have a little bit of purpose behind our text selection, why we chose certain texts. And as a teacher
Uh,
for the last
Actual
13,
training that you're going through is called Literacy TA.
oh, let's go ahead and mute our microphones. Um, if we can, if you know how to mute your microphone, go ahead and do that. If not, go ahead and hover over the Google Plus Hangout screen. And if you do that or click on it, you should see a toolbar that comes down from the top. That toolbar has a picture of a microphone with a line through it. That way you can have conversations without having everyone else join the conversation. So there's a little microphone icon if you can just click it, and then, or I can mute you myself. It depends on how we want to do that. Okay, so when we select text, so often it's about what I like to read or what I read when I was in high school, there was this great text in a conference, and I really want to read that same text. So it's really sometimes when we make choices about the books or novels, poems, essays, articles we read, sometimes it doesn't start with what skills do I want to teach, or what standards should my students be practicing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that before halfway through the session and just kind of orient ourselves in that process. I'm going to share my screen with you just so you know that I was here, and then I'll be back, I promise. But let's look at the agenda for today. What I did was yesterday I decided to chop up the different sessions into their own tables. That way the titles of each column would be clearer instead of scrolling down 2 or 3 pages and not knowing what column you were looking at. So I made that decision. I cleaned it up a little bit. I hope that that's okay. So we're in session 5. We're going to go over our marking samples, and then we're going to talk about how we can engage our students in academic discussions and why that's important. And then we're going to go over another skill called the reading and writing plan. That definitely can happen at the beginning of the 5-step reading process, but I've reserved it to today just to kind of give you another way of thinking about how we can get started with the reading process. And then selecting text purposefully. That's kind of what I was just talking about, purpose-driven reading, and then text complexity meter. We have this jigsaw activity today that we're going to work on as a group, and then our homework is to select a text. So it just makes sense right after this conversation about text selection that we're going to select a text. And I want this to be a text that you want to teach. And let me highlight here for you short text. So I want a 2 to 5 page text. I don't want to see a novel come in as your choice. So something short, something that you could teach in a matter of 4 or 5 days, or 2 to 3 days. So we're going to select a short text for our homework because that text is going to be the driver of what we do the next couple of days. And after today's conversation, hopefully the decision you make about your text will be more focused on standards and skills instead of something you read that you really liked. That said, you definitely should choose texts that are interesting and that are topical and have relevance in our students' lives. But I think you can do all of that. The filter that we have to use when selecting a text is varied, and we need to choose a high interest, and we need to choose something that's rigorous, and we need to choose something that fits our standards. So there's a lot that goes into selecting a text. And a lot of times it's just random. It's just you're looking online and you're looking for a subject to teach, and you find that subject, and now you just have to find a writer who's doing the kind of work that you want to teach your kids. So that's kind of the process. All right, so I'm going to switch over to the presentation. Our outcomes, which I've already kind of outlined. We're going to constantly deepen our understanding of our explicit skill-based approach. We're going to learn how speaking skills can support the reading process, and then we're going to explore purpose-driven reading and text complexity. So that's our goal for today. It's going to go pretty quickly. I think it has been going quickly our last 4 times together. So I don't see any difference today. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at our homework assignment. What I had asked you to do is find an article, a text that you teach or a text that you'd like to teach, and this could be something that you already have for your homework. So if we want to pull double duty, we can. If this article that you used or found to do this activity works for something you would teach next year, and fits the short text requirement, then by all means, let's use it for next time, which is tomorrow, and then you don't have any homework. And if you want to find something new after today's discussion, you can. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up and take a look. So we have, it looks like we have 3. Chantel, we're going to go ahead and look at her work, which I think she just continues to load down the page, which is great. It all keeps in one spot. So this is Not Every Kid Deserves a Prize. And I would ask, what I'm going to ask is just some reflection from each of you, and that reflection, it would be verbal. So you would unmute your mic and you would just talk a little bit about when you use this skill, marking a text, what did you notice? What were some of the kind of like, wow, this is going to be something I could use, or this is something I already do, or my students can benefit from this. Just kind of a reflection after you've gone through this one process without me. What is something you can say about marking a text? So Chantel, if you are willing and able, we can hear from you first.
Hello.
Hi. Good
Hi.
morning.
Good morning. So we do something similar when we mark text, but there's about 5 steps involved,
Mm-hmm.
or 5 different annotation markings.
Mm-hmm.
With this, like we were talking yesterday, it's more concise because there's only 3. What I did notice, though, is that in some of the evidence that I bracketed, that contained a lot of the key terms and things that stuck out to me. So I don't know if that's like double. I don't know if you should be circling, because that's what's highlighted, things that should be circled.
Mm-hmm.
If it should be part of what is what you're claiming is the evidence to back up your claim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's, if you're asking me, my
Yeah.
opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and
Okay.
even better is your question. Even better than the decision to circle things inside brackets is your question to kids. So getting them to come up with an answer to your question is probably the best thing we can do, and have them talk it out. You know,
Okay.
it shouldn't matter why, for example, we're circling things inside the evidence, or some might say, well, I didn't like it because it didn't keep it clean, and I want to have it a little bit more clean so that it's easier to scan back over. Or some students might say it was it's necessary. You can't ignore those words, even they're the evidence. It's okay. They're still part of it. So having them have that discussion, which we're going to talk about today, discussing the skills in practice, is an excellent, excellent decision as an instructor, to just kind of say, guys, this is what I saw when I did this. What do you think? And get
Okay.
them to kind of come up with some explanation as to why it is or is not appropriate would be great.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So going back to your site then,
Mm.
do you find that there, I mean, are you doing something school-wide already, or is there room for some adjustments, or where are you at with this process of annotation across the disciplines?
Well, across the disciplines, it's not happening at all. However, within the English department, we all have our own annotation marks, which we were told should be the same. I am in accordance to what the district has taught us through their close reading session.
Mm-hmm.
However, other teachers are doing maybe a variation of it, or they have more markings or less. So with ours, we circle powerful words. We underline confusing words. We draw arrow if there's a connection to another text, to
Mm-hmm.
yourself, or to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then we draw a question mark if there's something that's confusing or that we have a question about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it just takes it a few steps further than the three markings that Literacy TA is implementing.
Mm-hmm. So let me provide a little bit of clarity or clarification. So it sounds like your district is doing kind of two things at once cognitively, or asking students to do two things at once.
Mm-hmm.
One is to delineate or decipher what is important or essential information, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then in addition, to think about you as a reader, and what I'm struggling with, what I'm thinking, what I know, and what I don't know, which we would call writing in the margins.
Mm-hmm.
So what Literacy TA does is we boil down the process to very small or specific reading steps, and then within those steps there's a process too. So I would want them to do writing in the margins, so the portion that you are doing when they're maybe noting words that they don't understand, or they're drawing question marks or even exclamation points, which is a really good EL strategy.
Mm-hmm.
It removes the language from students, and now they're just working with symbols. So they
Right.
draw hearts, or they draw exclamation points, or they draw question marks. That's all kind of like just getting to know the text.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know you're not looking for suggestions, but as a
Oh,
practitioner,
I am.
as a practitioner, I'm thinking, maybe do those marks first, and
Works.
then have them do the circling or boxing or the underlining, whatever you guys have, as that kind of isolated work that's a
Uh-huh.
little bit more challenging. Have that be the second layer, so they're not having to think about five or six things while they're reading.
Okay, perfect. So
Yeah.
you're saying do the connections and question marks and confusing words throughout the first read, and
Yes.
go back on the second read to do the main ideas and claims
Yes.
and evidence. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, and then that would still follow the five-step process that we have outlined. So the
Okay.
first, sorry, when you are doing your clarification and symbol work, connecting work, that's going to be step 3, right? Reading for comprehension, and
Okay.
then step 4 would be your marking evidence and ideas and claims.
Okay. Four.
And that's all we're doing at Literacy TA, right? I mean, we might have a little twist on something that's a little bit cleaner, or might be present something different, but really we're doing what a lot of people recommend, and that is go through a text a number of different ways. But so many times I run into schools who use the word annotation so
Right.
loosely, and from class to class, annotation can mean anything. And as long as the kids are annotating, well, I want to amend that comment. As long as the kids are actively reading, that's good. But
Right.
what are they actually doing, and how much of it are they doing? If I tell my kids active reading can be 6 things, but they never get to underlining and bracketing, or they never get to like looking at what a claim is, but they're doing the hearts and they're doing the exclamation points, then they're really dodging a different level of thinking that I want them to get to.
Right.
So That's good. This
Okay,
is a great
great. Thank
discussion.
you.
Yeah, you're
Thank you.
welcome. Excellent, excellent. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to look at Lillian's. And if Lillian, if you're willing and able, some computers don't have microphones built in, so we'll see if it works. This is Lillian's article, Are Students Struggling to Read Because They Can't See? What an excellent, excellent topic.
Yes, I'm able to. Can you hear me?
I can. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. I pretty much just I watched the video and followed the steps
Mm-hmm.
that were given. I noticed the video they started out based on a prompt, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is good would be good for the students to kind of connect what they are supposed to be writing with.
Mm-hmm.
Writing about, excuse me, and what they're reading. So
Mm-hmm.
I could see using this article kind of as a persuasive article.
Mm-hmm.
Are students struggling to read because they can't see? Um, Having them look at that as an issue and then trying to decide whether that really is affecting a large amount of students based on what they read in the article.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, like I said, I went through the steps. Our school doesn't have a school-wide annotation or way that we read the text. Teachers pretty much decide how they want to teach students how to mark text.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was similar to what I did when we did the analyzing the prompt in my class, is really paying attention to the different types of language.
Mm-hmm.
And like Chantel was saying, we also did question marks, also exclamation points, things of that nature. So I like this technique a lot better for really getting them into the language. And
Mm-hmm.
it also taught me just how there are language connections. Sometimes we may not realize it. For instance, this particular article used a lot. They did actually use words from the title, struggling to read, challenging, other challenges, other words for that to kind of make connections so that the reader would definitely know that this is a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
They use the word problem a lot, solving the problem. So there were a lot of good key terms,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of solutions I bracketed. The hospital had an approach, and then also they talked about giving the kids a pair for home and a pair for school.
Mm-hmm.
So the article, I think, was really well written in that it did address both the problems and some solutions. So I think students would be able to really make the connections in this article
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
if they follow that process of marking the text.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know what you can do sometimes when you look at this, not to be afraid of it, but you know there's quite a few words here that are circled, and what you can do to help students filter this out is either create a small little list next to each paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to keep our margins fairly clean so that we can do some margin work, whether it's before or after analytical reading or deep reading. And I could list, like in paragraph 18, and thank you for numbering your paragraphs because now I can quickly reference, right? So in
Mm-hmm.
paragraph 18, you could have a small list that says challenge, test, vision problems. And now it's starting to have these words kind of pop out of the text. 19, I can write glasses. And maybe problem again, and then 22, vision, problem, literacy. So there's another like area here that we can kind of show the kids where these, you know, what words keep coming up, what words should we pay attention to, and it's a really good use of their margins, and then it would get them to feel maybe less overwhelmed, because there's going to be a few kids in your class that if we have a lot of circles, and they might need to, there may need to be a lot of circles, they might feel overwhelmed. And so boiling that list down and pulling them out of the text, whether it be in their notes or in their margin, is a really good idea. And I want to take your text as an opportunity to talk about what I call over-circling and under-circling. I think some students will want to circle everything, and you're going to see that the text will become bubbles and polka dots. instead of what it really should be is very choosy certain words that are circled. And then you're going to find kids that feel like every time I circle it costs them money or something because they rarely circle. And you say, well, you know, it's okay. You can circle more than one word per page, you know. And they're like, no, no, I want to. They're like reserving them for something. So your text is fine, but it's a good opportunity to talk about. So you guys know when you go into this of the under circlers and the over circlers. And I like to use a metaphor, and I use this in every training that I do because I think it just makes a lot of sense. You have heard of the going to the ballpark or in the ballpark, right? So it's like when you're close to something, when you're almost getting it, we say you're in the ballpark. Well, I talk to my students about going to the ballpark is the goal, right? And some of us are on the way to the ballpark. Some of us are still buying tickets to the ballpark. Some of us are in the parking lot waiting for the game to begin. Some of us are already in our seats at the ballpark, and some of us are on plate. But the point of it is that we're all going to get to the ballpark. We're going to get to it at our different times. We're not all going to arrive at the same time, but we will get there. And I think that it's really important for kids to know that although there isn't a right or wrong answer to this kind of work, that over time we will start to make similar decisions because we will all become better, stronger readers. And our circles should start to match up, and our underlines should start to match up. And one way to do that is once kids have marked their texts, ask them to talk about what they circled and what they underlined. So just turn to your neighbor. What is it that you guys found as important keywords in paragraphs 18 to 21? And what were some of the things that you underlined? Go ahead and share that with your partner right now. And then when you walk around the room, the amount of discourse that happens just from a simple question like, what did you circle, what did you underline, is incredible, which ties into what we're going to talk about in a little bit, is getting kids to talk about the skills themselves. Don't ask them right away, what did the Hopkins studies conclude? Because we're skipping a major step. The step we don't want to skip is, what did you find in the text? Like, what information did you find important? Why did you find that information important? And let them talk it out is so important. And then I wanted to make one more comment you brought up, actually two. I have so many students come to school without their glasses. I love the idea of having the requirement of a pair of glasses in school and a pair of glasses at home. And I bet some parents probably have that arranged with the school nurse. But when you don't have those parents that either A, have the money to buy 2 sets of glasses, or B, have the organizational skills and planning skills to ensure that their child has glasses at school. I have kids show up to school without their glasses, and I say, do you need to call home? They're like, no, it's okay. And I say, you're going to go through school all day reading without your glasses? Like, that's not, oh, I'll be okay. And they have these coping mechanisms. They figure out ways to get around it for the day or for the week, if it depends if they broke them. And it's hard for me because I don't want them to have to deal with that. I don't want them to have to struggle and not be able to read simply because they don't have an extra set of glasses. So I think that's a very interesting topic in schools. And then my last comment is, when students are practicing skills, we have the freedom, we the teachers have the freedom to monitor and assess. And one of the things that struck me with this article is this idea of identifying students who might be struggling to read because they can't see, which is in 4, right? So are students struggling to read because they can't see? So in paragraph 4, this triggered a connection for me that when I'm teaching, I'm walking around the room while my students are reading and marking and annotating, and I'm looking at the choices that they're making, and I'm looking at the margin notes that they're writing, and it gives me the opportunity to kneel down and talk to individual students and have that one-on-one time that I normally don't get when I'm lecturing, and I normally don't get when there's a group project. But when kids are practicing skills on their own, it frees me up and it allows me to assess what's going on. And I have helped so many students with their reading simply because I was present. I was in the room, present, and looking at what students were doing. And based on my assessment, I came to some conclusions and confirmed with students and realized that either they needed glasses or the words were bouncing all over the page and they weren't able to track well, so I gave them some tracking strategies. But had I not done that, and I always stood in front of them and never worked through the room and never gave them an opportunity to demonstrate for me what they can and can't do, I wouldn't have had those conversations, and I wouldn't have caught those simple issues that exist but that create huge problems for our kids. So it's just something interesting that when we give kids skills to practice, it allows us to do so many things as teachers in the classroom. So just giving you something, food for thought to think about. All right. And then Delaney, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but please, if I mispronounce anyone's name, let me know. I would appreciate it. And let's go ahead and talk about your text, if that's okay.
I did the first paragraph. I didn't go through the entire thing because I felt like I was so familiar, and I really struggled with, okay, just doing keywords and trying to underline only because I felt so close to the text. So it was hard for me to go back and to mark the text because I've read it 100 times and I really know what it says. So I tried to, I think my underlining are the keywords and my highlights are the pieces that kind of resonated or kind of had some sense of meaning in this first part of the piece.
Okay, great. Can I dig a little bit deeper about when you say and I get what you mean by being close to the text, but can I inquire a little bit more about why that was a hindrance for you for marking?
I think one of the things is I'm going to have to kind of shift my practice. I grew up annotating the text. To me, meant writing in the margin what I was reading and understanding. So with teaching my students in the past, I've had them do some underlining and then make some notes in the text. Circling brackets and going through the whole process for me seemed like a longer step than the way that I've done it. So I'm going to have to retrain myself in teaching my students to do it in a more systematic way.
Okay, good. That was very well said.
And I think, like Chantel said, my school does not have a standardized way of teaching students how to read for deeper meaning. Everybody kind of does their own thing. So in that regard, I think this is a good opportunity for the beginning of the school year, as the common planning time comes around, to talk about, let's look at ways that are going to help students read deeper. And this will be one way that I can suggest to the staff or to my department, this is how we can do it.
Excellent. Great. Thank you for sharing. And we can also see the challenge that having inconsistent practice might cause for students. So just for an example, and there's nothing here that is a problem, but notice the difference between the two digital markings. The one digital marking showed highlighting the key terms and then underlining. This one is showing highlighting maybe what we would call some of the essential ideas and then underlining those key terms. Not one is wrong, but think about how students moving from class to class, if we switch it on them, how challenging that might be as they try to learn and practice this skill and master it eventually, if we're inconsistent with that approach, and it sounds like every one of you want to be consistent, the challenge is getting your staff to agree to some sort of consistency. But it's the same thing as chewing gum in class or eating or being tardy. If one teacher says it's okay to be tardy and chew gum, and another teacher says it's okay to use headphones and eat, and then I don't want any of it, well, they're going to get in trouble a lot of times in my class because they forget that, oh yeah, I'm the one who doesn't allow the tardies and doesn't allow the gum chewing and doesn't allow the headphones, but my third period is okay with it, and my first, that's too much for kids to think about. So that consistent practice is so important.
Yes, I agree.
Well, good. I'm glad. Okay, we're going to go ahead and transition out of here. Thank you so much for you guys putting those up. I know that it's a little bit of a risk when you're putting your work out there, and I appreciate you taking that risk and being willing to have a conversation and unmute your microphone and be able to talk to me about it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think Google gives me some tools that I can show my gratitude. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my applause tool. That's just me being silly in the morning. So anyway, thank you guys very much. That was amazing. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. And I want to take you into this jigsaw activity. So we're a little interactive this morning, which is a good thing. What I want you guys to do is, in step 5, there's a number of things that we can do. We can have students fill out a graphic organizer, or we can have them engage in so many other things. So what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to explore one activity or one skill, and you're going to report back on it in a form of reflection. So the link is not here. The link is going to be in the agenda. So I'm going to bounce this over to the agenda. If you can follow me, I would appreciate it. And in the agenda, you will see a description of what the activity is. It's the jigsaw activity. And we're going to go ahead and go to start. So you're going to press start, and then as always, there's going to be additional instructions on the second page. And you guys have done this before. You're going to go ahead and sign in with a color, so that way we know who you are. I can match up your work to your name. And once you've signed in, you can go ahead and scroll to the second page. And the directions say, select one skill from the list below. You're going to take 10 minutes to explore the skill and report what you found in the space provided below. So you're going to copy and paste the skill name in the first column, and then please don't duplicate. So if one of you chooses high five, please don't have someone else do high five. Let's try to get different ones so we can hear or see what the differences are. And my whole goal for you is to learn about this skill and write about what did you find, what does it offer, how might we use it with our students in the step 5 process, and then what standards are aligned to this skill. Now I'm going to give you a little cheat sheet. If you look really hard and you explore well, the standards are listed somewhere. You just have to find them. So instead of you trying to figure it out yourself, if you look hard enough and you explore, you will find the standards that match up to these skills. So you have my permission at any time. The time starts now at 7, well, it's my 7:40, sorry. I think it's your 10:40. You guys can start, and then in 10 minutes, I will check in with you. As always, I'm going to be here for any questions that you might have. You can type them or unmute your mic and speak to me directly. The goal is for you to go online to Literacy TA, explore the one skill that you've signed up for, and report back on it in this space. So I look forward to hearing or seeing what you guys are going to say and write about, and we'll check back in 10 minutes. Okay, have fun. Good luck. Good morning, Val.
Hi.
We're just starting an activity. That's why it's so quiet. So if you wanted to look at the presentation that links off the agenda, and you can link right to the activity from the agenda if you want. And can you tell me, do you have a TA, a teacher assistant account?
No, I don't. I have to
Okay.
get it from my school system.
Perfect. So, can you, in Google Plus Hangout, there's an opportunity for you to chat with me. If you hover over the screen, there's going to be blue bubbles. If
Mhm.
you click on the blue bubble, you'll be able to chat. Perfect. I see that you joined. Can you please give me your full name that you use for your students, your school, and then your email address, and I will send you an email with a link to your account.
Okay, it's Valerie, Valerie.
Oh, go ahead
Gray.
and type it. Go ahead and type it in for me. That way, I don't make any mistakes.
Okay.
And then your email address as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then if you want to mute your microphone, you can by, again, hovering over, and then there should be a little icon that comes out on the top of your screen, and that there should be a picture of a microphone with a line through it. And if you click on that, it will kill your mic. That way you can make as much noise as you want on your side. Perfect. Good job. What a great student you are. Okay, if you check your email, that you should see a welcome email from Literacy TA.
Jonathan, this is Ava. I have a question.
Hi, Ava.
Where in literacy TA will I find the skills that I'm looking for?
I've created a hyperlink to each of the skills. So if you just click on it, so I think I'm not sure who you are as far as your animal. Are you
High five. Oh, I'm not sure either.
oh okay. So if you click on high five, there should be a URL that drops down below it, and then you can click on it and follow it.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. We still need someone to do the argument map and the argument poster if we have enough in the chat today or in the Google. Perfect. Thank you. Those 10 minutes went pretty quickly, so don't panic. I'm going to go ahead and give you more time because this work I think is important. So let's do another 5 and see where we are, and then if we need to add more time, we can. But don't worry, the 10 minutes surprisingly are already up. But we'll go ahead and take some more time. No problem. Let's do 5 more minutes and see where we are. Okay, it looks like we're just about finished. Great job on your exploration, and hopefully some of you saw the standards. I just want to show you real quickly since I have the screen in share mode. I can go ahead and look at any of the skills at Literacy TA, and there's two places where the standards appear. They appear here in little cubes right next to the skill icon. They also, if you click on the handout, or sorry, the link, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, they're all called out on the bottom as well. We're going to be updating only because you know about the sensitivities of Common Core across the country. We're going to be updating this logo and calling them state standards because I think everyone's using the college and career readiness standards, but we're calling them something a little different and maybe changing some of the letters. So we're going to be updating that. But I think all of you guys are still using the same anchor standard numbers and letters. So this probably makes a lot of sense to you. So we have them listed. So for each skill in the skill library, we provide some reference. So that's good. I wanted to talk quickly about each one of these. The argument poster, just to kind of give you some other ways of thinking about it. The argument poster, I have my kids, instead of using big poster paper, sometimes I have them use 8.5 by 11. Then they take a picture and email it to me or put it in Google Docs, and then I project it onto the screen so it's huge. So instead of the kids standing up there and shaking and holding the poster, and I have all these extra posters in my room, we do a little 8.5 by 11, take a picture of it, get it into your computer, and then you can show the students. And it looks like there's, yeah, right in our chat too, right on this document. I think, is that Ava? Is that the? I believe so. I've used Prezi before, but sometimes students can't explain the visuals. Oh, so this is about High Five. High Five allows students to have notes, talking points. Absolutely. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Socratic seminars, obviously a very powerful tool. I like to use it before a writing assignment. I also like to use it in place of a writing assignment. So Socratic seminars are when students talk about text, right? So they are, without the teacher, engaging in discourse about a text, and we want to give some specific topics for them to discuss. They can use the prompt or other things. The 1-minute speech changed my teaching completely. This one has changed so much of what I do. I developed it only because I was frustrated by the fact that I wasn't giving enough speaking activities, and I didn't give speaking activities for a while or tasks, because they took too long, and I didn't like spending 3 days rehearsing and a week of presentations, and students are antsy, and I'm trying to figure out strategies to keep them in their seats and keep them engaged, and I've done all sorts of grading strategies and accountability strategies, and I said, you know, I can get, because when I read essays, I always say, I probably know your grade in the first paragraph. I probably can tell where this paper is going in the first paragraph. And then I thought, well, if I can do that, not that I grade that way, but you know what I mean, as a grader you kind of get a sense. If I can do that for writing, why can't I do that for speaking? So I thought, well, if you can't convince me in 1 minute that you have control over your ideas, that you have comprehended what I've asked you to read, if you can't articulate your concepts and textual details in 1 minute, then I've heard enough. I don't need to hear 5 minutes of you not knowing what you're saying. And the 1-minute speech, as it's recorded here, it works on many different skills. It works on source integration. It works on acknowledging audience. It works on textual details. It works on them speaking. It works on more formal. I'm going to add one more little wrinkle to this, which is really cool. I don't know if it's a wrinkle, but it's definitely a value add. I have my kids give what I call boardroom presentations. And what this is it's and I'm typing right onto the document right now. It's one student presents to 6 to 8 students. So I don't typically ask students to present to the whole class. And the reason why is because the majority of our work that we do as professionals is in small groups. Most people in this world do not become public speakers. And a public speaker would be defined by someone who's standing in front of a room of 20 to 30 to 100 to 2,000 people. So most of the time we have to do a boardroom presentation where we're sitting around with our colleagues or we're pitching something to a small leadership team. So I call it boardroom presentation. And the boardroom presentation is a combination of one student with 6 to 8 while doing the 1-minute speech. And then I run multiple boardroom presentations at the same time. So I'll run 3 boardroom presentations at once and grade all 3 of them at the same time. And the way I do that is I use the 1-minute speech rubric, or I use another rubric that got different ones that you guys could use. And I stand there and I just go from student to student, looking, listening, getting a feel for what they're saying, getting a feel for the content that they're providing, the seriousness, their tone, and I can grade them. The whole entire class can do all their speeches in one period. And it's all because of 1-minute speech and the combination of boardroom presentation. It's awesome. It's absolutely amazing. So the day before, we prep for the 1-minute speech, we write them, and then the next day we deliver them, and it's done. And our public speaking for that week or for that couple of weeks is complete. And then there's High Five, which I love. This is actually taken from a company, can you believe this, that exists only because they teach 500, Fortune 500 companies how to develop PowerPoint presentations. That's all this company does. And I adapted some of their ideas for presentations and turned it into a kid-friendly strategy. So it's called High Five because that's what we want to give. We want to give someone a high five and like, yeah, nice job, And so we played with the word high five and turned it into 5 series of 5s, 5 slides, 5 bullets, 5 words per bullet, 5 images, and then for 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes, of course, if you want them to go that long, great. If you don't, you can always amend that number. But the high five is so great because it gives kids that structure that they need. So if you don't know how to see all these at once, go to the skill library. And we've been going to the reading nonfiction, but I want you guys to go to speaking and listening. So if you go to speaking and listening in the skill library, you will see 3 new categories that we haven't talked about that happen. We talk a lot more about these in my speaking training. So academic discussions, in-class presentations, and then collaborative activities. So in-class presentations would be where High Five exists, and here it is. And then the 1-minute speech. So High Five is awesome because it literally shows you graphically as well as in language what you need to do for your high five. This is it. 5 slides, 5 bullets at a max, 5 words per bullet, and even the instructions are following the high five rules. There's 5 visuals if you count the little iPhone images as visuals. See, it's really, really cool. Get it immediately. And that's one of the things I've struggled with is how do I get kids to create better presentations that aren't cut and paste, that are not plagiarized, that are awful looking, that are very hard to read, and High Five changed all that. So very cool. And of course you can do High Five on Prezi or other publishing tools. You don't necessarily need to use Keynote or PowerPoint. Good job. Okay, excellent work on this jigsaw activity. I hope that you guys picked up some things and were able to kind of strengthen what you already do or add some different dynamics. And maybe some new tools to your tool belt. That was the whole goal of this. So these all can happen in step 5 as a result of step 5. Now kids are ready to do this. So that was really the main goal of this work. Going to the presentation, we're going to now get to the speaking part, which is getting kids to talk. So I've talked about it already, so I can be a little bit shorter on this discussion. But really, we want to be able to have our kids talk about writing in the margins. So, for example, if I have my students write in the margins, I want them to turn and talk to each other about, what did you write in your margins? Why did you write that? Oh, you made a connection there? I've never seen that before. Oh, can you tell me more about that? And getting them to have conversations about them as readers is really, really important. We want to engage kids in discussions about their predictions, about their text analysis, their structure analysis. What devices did you find? What is that device called? And just constantly getting them to talk about what they did and how they did it in their text. So I gave you a couple of questions that could work in almost any situation. So let's say I had my kids do writing in the margins, or read 1, speak 2, write 3, and I said, what did you guys notice? Well, now they can talk about, I noticed that I understood more when I talked about it. I had a little bit of understanding while reading, but after I talked to my neighbor about what I read, my comprehension increased. That is a fantastic discussion to have. Or what decisions have you made? You know, Mr. Lemaster asked me to write down some of the essential ideas, and what I decided to do is use my margin to da-da-da-da. I mean, these are decisions or discussions of kids that are going to start owning the skill. They're going to start owning how to do it, why they do it that way, and they're going to grow, and they're going to master it, and they're going to become better readers because of it. What did you learn as you practice this skill? You know, I learned that I can't touch the text until I read it once. I get too confused. My brain tells me it should be doing something analytical, and I really just want to be able to read it. So I have to read it first before I touch it. That's an amazing discovery that the kids can have as readers. And those discoveries and those conversations can only happen if we create space in getting them to talk. The other way we can get them to talk is directly about the skill and what the skill did. So if you'll notice, in all of our reading skills, we have some language support. So remember, let's go back to like marking a text. So in marking a text, under our differentiate and support learning, you're going to see discussing info, discussing argument. So if you click on these, you saw this before, but hopefully it's now making stronger connections. Look at these different language starters that you can use when asking kids to speak about what they marked in a text, right? So we have these for most, not all, but we have these for most of our skills. If you go into, say, read 1, speak 2, write 3, which we've already done, we don't have them because they're already speaking. Well, I kind of misspoke a little bit. We have them, they're just embedded into the, oh no, I'm sorry, we do have them. Summary starters, my fault, and textbook starters. So if you want them to talk about what they found in a textbook, they can be they're listed here. What I was thinking about is in our guide, we have them right here. So you have some starters for speaking, and then you have some starters for writing. So it's actually, they're embedded into our guide, but we also have them pulled out as speaking supports. So we want our kids to talk. We want our kids to talk about what's happening, what the text is offering, how you're using the skill. We want them to constantly have conversations. And you might ask, well, how often? Well, if you saw me, I was building another slide because I anticipated this question. How often we want our kids talking? 5 to 8, every 5 to 8 minutes, or 5 to 8 times per class, right? So whenever they're engaged in new learning, or they're engaged in independent practice, or moments of genuine discovery / inquiry, then we want them stopping and we want them to talk. If you were in my training live, we would be doing this 5 to 8, every 5 to 8 minutes, because I'm giving you lots of new information, right? And I'm lecturing. So I would have you guys turn, use a sticky note, turn what I call turn your torso, which just means turn to your partner, talk about this, talk about that, share ideas, what did I just say, what are the steps? All of these kind of moments of reflection and processing are extremely important for our students' success. So getting them to talk both about the skill itself and their own experience as a reader is vital to their development as readers. Absolutely 100% vital. So this is the getting them to talk segment, or engaging in academic discussions. Do we have comments about this, thoughts, something you want to type in the chat on the Google Hangout, or unmute your mic and speak to us directly, things that you're thinking about when we talk about getting kids to talk? Okay, no problem. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to share or reflect if you had some ideas or thoughts about it. I'm sure you do, but maybe not wanting to share them. So the reading writing plan is something that we could have set up after analyzing prompts. And I didn't do that intentionally so that we could just focus on analyzing prompts. But a reading writing plan would happen once the kids have identified and read the prompt and identified and underlined the essential ideas, the directive verbs, and what those verbs ask them to do. And then they would create a reading writing plan. The reading writing plan is designed for students to create an outline. And that outline is designed to capture textual details once they've read. So this could jump all the way to step 5, and that's why I'm talking about it. So this could be a step 5 piece, but it is built in step 1. And I'm going to take us to Literacy TA to show you that right now. So in our prompt analysis area, our place where we have prompt analysis skills, this is going through DOK right now, so these are our skills aligned to Webb's depth of knowledge. There's going to be an area called prompt analysis skills. And when I click on that, we can see analyzing research prompts versus analyzing test questions, and then analyzing text-dependent prompts, which is the one that you guys have learned about, and then now building a reading writing plan. So building a reading writing plan, I'm going to show you what this looks like. It gives kids the opportunity here to create a graphic organizer where they write in the verb from the prompt. So this might be explain. And then on this line, what is it that they're explaining? Or summarize the author's central argument. So they would write the word summarize above verb, then they would write the author's central argument on this first line. Then they create a skeleton, A12, B12. It's completely blank. When they finally get to step 5, they can fill this in. What was a subclaim that the author makes? Or what was one component of the claim? And what was another component of the argument or claim that the author makes? Then I use 1 and 2 as the evidence the author uses to support that, and I use 1 and 2 as the evidence for that the author uses to support the sub. I don't know, I always tell my kids, I don't know how many A1s and 2s we're going to need, but this is a pretty good amount. If I were writing a paper for one of the verbs in my prompts, this is a pretty good amount. A12, B12. So watch all the different supports we have. We have a template that's already designed that students can just work. See this? So you would just print this out or have them create this in their notes. And again, this comes from the prompt. So they would write the verbs, the directive verbs, and then what the verbs ask them to do, and they would leave all of this blank until step 5. And they would leave all of this blank until step 5. Because it isn't until step 5 that they're ready to actually create an outline. And this would be connecting the reading to the writing. So there's lots of ways we can do this. There's lots of graphic organizers. There's a number of different note-taking systems that you can use. But this is one of our systems that we have found works. You start with analyzing prompts. You break the prompt down. Then you create what we call a reading-writing plan, which is this. And then you write your paper. So these are the 3 main steps. After you follow the reading process, you fill this out, and you can write your paper. There's a rubric for it to grade students on how well they're creating the reading-writing plan. And there is a student sample. So this will probably be the most useful for you since this is new learning. This particular prompt has 5 verbs. You see them all in yellow? Explain, describe, name, evaluate, and then explain. And notice that the student has chosen to number 1, and then all the way over here is number 2. Then number 3, remember I said they don't always have to go in order, as long as it makes sense to you and your reader. And number 5 is at the end. So it goes 1, 3, 4, 2, 5. What the student is going to do is write these verbs in order in which they've numbered them. So I should see explain and then evaluate. And then this particular student did not do that in this sample. So then they're going to lose a little bit of points on their rubric because they should be following the order that they're going to talk about them in their paper. So this is the order I'm wanting or I'm expecting the student to write about. I expect them to explain who Rosa Parks is. I expect them to evaluate the impact her life has on America. Then I'd like to have them write about the adversity, then 2 qualities, and then explain why we should celebrate her life. That's the order that this child has chosen to write in. Now, the reading-writing plan should follow that, and it didn't. So there's going to be a little bit of confusion when they sit down to write. So either they have chosen the wrong order, or they numbered them and had changed their mind but never updated those numbers. But look at how beautiful this is. All of this information, I'm going to let the screen sit here for a second so you can read a little bit of it. But you can see the A12, B12. And this was all done after watching a video, reading a text, and then doing a little bit of research on their own. So they did a little research on their own, they read a text that I chose, and they watched a video, and they were able to pull all of this source material together. And when you ask a student to write an essay, they sometimes freak out because they don't know what to say, they don't know what to write, they don't know how much to write, they feel like they have nothing to start with. Look at how much, just by putting in a single sentence for each A12, B12, how much information this student has to write this paper. And if you look closely at the information, it's pretty good. It's pretty good source material. And now notice there's different things to write about, but that wasn't the child deciding that. That was me, the teacher, choosing different ways to speak about this particular individual, right? So they're going to explain who this person is, describe the adversity, name 2 character qualities. So there's all these different things I added into the prompt. So the first step for them was to analyze the prompt. Then it was to fill in the skeleton of the reading-writing plan by putting in the verb and what the verb asks the student to do. And then all of this would be blank until step 2 to 4 are complete, and then they can finish this as step 5 in the reading process. Okay. So this is a ton of new learning. That was a lot there. Let me get just a feeling from you in the chat, in the Google chat. What do you guys think about the reading writing plan? Do you think that you could use it, or something that would be useful, a way to get kids to transition from the reading to the writing and give them a powerful support? What do you guys think in your chat? Right, Lillian says this plan would be great for struggling writers. Yeah, keeping them focused is another thought. Yeah, keeping students focused, so important, right? Getting them, and if I may add, making sure, this is really important, that they've addressed all aspects of the prompt. Making sure they've addressed all aspects of the prompt. Too often students grab onto something that they're familiar with, or something that makes sense to them, and then they forget about everything else. They forget about all the little extra writing pieces or topics that they have to include. And creating a plan like this helps them focus on all of the aspects. So I'll have my kids, believe it or not, and you probably can see the power of this, just create a reading writing plan as their essay. That's it. So I will just have them do a reading writing plan, and then I can scan through and make sure they're getting it, they understand the reading, they understand my objectives, my purpose, and then I can move on and know that they're getting closer to writing more competently as they read more competently. So this is a great way to kind of go around the essay and not actually have them do it. So you've got the 1-minute speech instead of an essay. You've got the high five instead of an essay. You've got this, the reading writing plan, instead of an essay. You have Socratic seminar instead of an essay. But really, they're still demonstrating their thinking. They're still demonstrating that they understand. They're still demonstrating that they can comprehend the text we ask them to read, but they're doing it in different ways. They're doing it in different ways. And I'm not anti-essay. I have my kids write often, but I'm just trying to expand a little bit of how we can get kids to think at higher levels, but not always sit and spend our entire weekends grading papers in order to get there. We can teach higher order thinking without always assigning a paper. Okay, in conclusion, here we go. Selecting texts. So our assignment next time we meet, which is tomorrow, is to have a text. Now, many of you guys already have them because you marked them, and if you want to use those, great. But what we're going to do is we're going to select a text that goes beyond content. Meaning, I don't want us to choose a text that simply is about your subject matter, or, oh, you know, I teach 11th grade, and so it needs to be U.S. history based, it needs to be like American literature. Those are content-based decisions. I am a history teacher, and my standard tells me that students need to learn about you know, the different forms of government, and so I'm going to choose that's a content decision. I want it to be based on a skill decision. So what skills do you want your kids to learn? What reading ability do you want them to be able to possess? And then choose a text based on that. All texts offer different things. Some texts offer very clear claims. Some texts offer kind of claims that are more suggestive instead of explicit. And those aren't great to teach kids when we're just getting to know argumentation. We want something that's very clear, something explicit, great. If I want them to learn writing in the margins, I don't want to give them a text that they don't have any connection to, that they wouldn't want to respond in any sort of way. So if I want to write in the margins, I might bring in a bullying article, I might bring in a Facebook article or a screen time article, I might bring in a driving age article, I might bring in something that they have a lot of opinions about, right? Because I want them to learn that readers respond to things as they read, that they respond to ideas very naturally as they read. If I want them to practice clarifying ideas, I'm going to bring in a really hard text. I'm going to bring in something that they're going to have to stop every other sentence and go, what does this mean? I don't understand. Okay? So we should consider what our objectives are before we select our text. Once we've selected our text, we need to read it in the ways we'd have our students read it. All right? So we don't want to just say, okay, I've got this text, let's go ahead and read it together, and you not have read it first, because then you don't know how to support them, you don't know what skills you can give additionally, what scaffolding tools. We need to really know the text before we go in to the reading. And you don't necessarily need to have read it the way you want your kids to read it before tomorrow, but I want you to have an idea of what you want to teach. And instead of this being an exercise that doesn't mean anything to you, I want you guys to come up with something that you could teach. I want you to come up with something that you feel very comfortable teaching this year when you see your students, which is soon. I want you guys to have something that you can use, whether it's the first week of school or fourth week of school, but I want you to spend your time with me in a purposeful way. And you're not having to do double work or do something that doesn't have any relevance to your teaching. So I really want you to choose a text that works for you. Okay? So if you go to the agenda, which I'm going to not share my screen yet, but on the agenda there's going to be a link to some sources that you might want to consider. You guys have your own places you like to go, but all educators like to learn some new resources for finding articles. So what I've done on the agenda is I've created a link to our nonfiction source reference page. The nonfiction source reference page is peer-reviewed web pages that will give you great articles and a place that you can start. If you have your own places you like to go, great, no problem at all, but this is just kind of a place for you to think about, maybe go, and I believe everything here is no membership and free, so you don't have to worry about like signing up for a membership or anything. So I'm going to show you just quickly the nonfiction source reference, and then I'm going to let you guys go. Remember, your homework is just to find an article. That's it. So it's to find an article, but in order to find an article, you have to kind of know what you want to do. Do you want to teach argument with marking, read one, speak two, write three, or summarizing main ideas with marking, or do you want to do investigative reading? What do you want to teach your students? Okay, and then have those ideas coming into tomorrow, because we're going to start building a lesson together. All right, so click on the link to nonfiction source reference, and you can see all these wonderful resources that you can go to. And you can read, we've given you a little description of each one. You can read what they offer. We have them for science, we have them for history, we have them for English classes, we have them for elementary school, we have them for high school. We have resources that are leveled down by Lexile. We have the top 100 speeches delivered in the United States history, as well as a whole catalog of Barack Obama's speeches, because we know, regardless of your political affiliations, we know how wonderful of an orator he is and how great his speeches are. So there's, in this American Rhetoric, there's plenty of resources from Barack Obama, and then again, the top 100 speeches delivered in the United States. Really great places to get started with texts if you want to go here. Room for Debate is one of my favorites. They take an issue, so they might say like cyberbullying, and they'll take 6 perspectives on one issue. Not 3 pros and 3 cons. It will be 6 separate perspectives, completely different viewpoints on one issue. And it's fantastic, because the kids are going to hear viewpoints that they're not used to hearing, and they're not the typical ideas that you might predict would be the center of the discussion. So Room for Debate, awesome. It's New York Times, can't go wrong. Very, very good. Remember, though, you're just choosing one text for next time. Okay, so you have what you need. You do not need to submit that text. We're just going to go ahead and use it. I'm going to spend the majority of tomorrow morning talking about our lesson planner. I think you're going to really like it. And then we're going to spend some time having you build your lesson and do that work. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's where we're headed with 6. Yeah, so we're going to be building lessons, learning about our lesson planner. I think you're going to love it. It's a tool that's unlike any other out there in education right now, and I only know that because that's what I do. It's my field. I'm a teacher, and I look for these things. I think you're going to really enjoy the lesson planner. Guys, you did a great job today, as always. Thank you for participating. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Thank you for listening to me talk a million miles a minute. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for doing your homework and contributing. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to a couple more days with you. So we've got 2 more this week, Thursday and Friday. So thank you very much for a great day. Hopefully the tools that we covered today and the resources are going to be helpful, not just in I can do this on a Thursday, but they're really transformational is my goal, is that the things that I'm showing you start to transform some of your decisions and instructional practices in your classroom. Alrighty, so good luck to you. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you guys very soon. Thank you very much.